You're listening about a topic on hell, the confession of an ex-Christian, myself. I was born into a very conservative Christian system and learned about heaven and hell before I was 5. The idea of an eternal torment in a lake of fire and how easy it was to end up there constantly scared me and struck me with chronic guilt for the smallest things. I was taught if we sin, small or large, we would go to hell. There were times when I disobeyed my parents or took sweets from the fridge when I wasn't supposed to and later felt scared that if I died that moment I would eternally burn and suffer in a fiery lake and there was no way out of it for billions and trillions of years. I was taught an invisible Jesus saves from hell if we ask him to forgive our wrongdoing. This wrongdoing is called sin in Christianity. But the catch was, one had to be forgiven before one died or else it was too late. There was no way to get saved if one was already dead and in hell. But the information was vague and contradictory, which made it more scary. You would think something so important to people would have so important that people would have it figured out to the tooth. But even the Bible is vague and contradictory on the issue of hell. Plus, I could never figure out how to be perfect, as it seemed half the things I did as a child was a sin in one way or another. We were taught once we sin, even in the slightest, we lose salvation, which means on our way to hell again. There was always this debate. How many times can one sin and keep asking for forgiveness? Is there a limit? Is it one strike and you're out, or 3 strikes or more? Or is it unlimited? In my teen years, I thought, what if there is no limit? So I learned to be efficient and played the system as one would expect. The timing gap from sin to forgiveness grew shorter and shorter. Asking for forgiveness right away after sin decreased the chance of accidentally dying and missing out on forgiveness, possibly ending up in eternal hell. More questions. What if one believes in Jesus and asked for forgiveness in the past, creates a new sin, and dies just before they asked for forgiveness again? Will they go to hell? What if one is starting the forgiveness prayer and died right before they were able to finish the prayer? What is the exact sentence and what exact words do you have to get past to be in the safe zone? You think this is a joke? No joke. I really thought all of these things, and I could tell many young Christians around me who had enough capacity to rationalize on their own were just as confused. Then the debate, do small sins, such as stealing a fruit from a neighbor's fruit tree, condemn one to hell? Or is it only bigger sins, such as hitting someone in the face or, worse, murder? If so, where is the line and who calls it? All this, very scary for a kid such as myself at the time, who believed hell was very real and millions were already burning there, never to come out again. Later, I heard of teachings that all one needed was to believe that Jesus is the Son of God and ask for forgiveness, and one will never go to hell. Does that mean one can believe in Jesus, can be reckless, and still avoid hell? In any case, the vagueness and contradictions from different pastors and leaders did not help. Neither did praying or reading the Bible. Praying about these issues, I could never tell if my thoughts were of God or my own. While praying, I couldn't resist of thinking how cute the girl in Sunday school was, let alone sort out God's answer to hell. Reading the Bible confused me even more. The Bible showed contradictions in regards to hell. It is nearly impossible to distinguish which parts are literal or just figurative speech. This just confused me even more. Some Christians I personally know were totally okay with the idea that many are simply headed to hell and seemed proud they themselves were headed for heaven, almost as if they couldn't wait to get to heaven and look down on those in hell to say, "Told you so." The other thing that bugged me so much, majority of Christians spent most of their time on secular jobs and hobbies. How can they do this while at the same time believing billions around them are supposedly going to hell for eternity, including their loved ones, and possibly even their own eternal life is at risk? Wouldn't the prospect of eternal hell or heaven make anything in this life meaningless in comparison? But no, these people go on. They start businesses, they go to work, they build houses, they settle in. Honestly, most Christians who say they believe in hell and heaven, by the way they live their lives, you could never guess they even believe in an eternal hell or heaven for that matter. I'm starting to sound like a preacher in a church, but there is a reason why people act like this, as if hell is this elephant in the room that all Christians see, but few would address these questions officially. Is it possible many who believe in hell don't know for sure, but believe in Jesus just in case, and therefore don't bother with the questions and details? Really? If an all-knowing God was real, you really think you can fool God by telling him you only believed in him just to avoid hell? The reality is, if you believe in God, mostly to avoid hell, you don't genuinely love God, but believe simply by fear. It is not your fault, and don't feel guilty. Keep listening further. It was suggested to me by a close Christian, the whole point of Jesus is that we no longer have to worry about hell. For those who believe in Jesus, hell becomes a non-issue because believers in Jesus go to heaven. That sounds great at face value, doesn't it? But a huge moral dilemma again that I could never get past. Most normal humans have empathy and cannot feel easy about someone being tortured brutally right in front of them, deserved or not. Most people even have empathy towards strangers they never met. Christian missions are based on this. I cannot imagine being happy in heaven praising this God while at the same time knowing humanity and possibly my loved ones are burning in hell forever. The whole idea of hell itself and a loving God at the same time seemed a huge contradiction that I could never get over. In my late 20s, this moral dilemma finally pushed me over the edge and I had to address the issue of hell directly. One day I was sitting on the couch at my home by myself as the topic came up in my mind, and I proclaimed to myself out loud, a loving God cannot coexist with people burning in hell. So I had to make a choice that moment, as I could no longer live with myself anymore believing in hell. Either I believed in a loving God with no hell, or I believed in a God who allows a hell to exist. If God and hell was in fact real, I refused to believe and serve such a God anyways, as it goes against everything moral and all humanity. In an instant, a blink of an eye, hell became nothing more than a fairy tale to me. A mental burden was lifted off my consciousness that instant. In the following few months, I still chose to believe in a loving God. However, now that all fear was gone, basic logic and skepticism flowed in like a flood. Within months, afterlife, all superstitions, gods, miracles, and spirits vanished from my beliefs. This time of my life was the most free I have ever felt, not really a feeling I can describe. After this point, I simply had no feelings of guilt for things that don't matter, as I have struggled with guilt all previous years of my life. These superstitions were so far removed from my mind in such a short time, they became laughable and I could not control it. Christians can relate to this because they also find other beliefs laughable, such as becoming a butterfly in afterlife in some religions. Because to a Christian, many foreign superstitions seem so out of touch from reality, even Christians naturally find it humorous. In the same way today, I'm still in shock. People resort to any superstition or God to explain things. The other issue with hell is the idea that humans have free will. There are many different parasites that attack certain parts of the brain, such as toxoplasmosis, which is thought to affect a third of the world and directly affect human actions and thoughts by reducing fear. How many other undiscovered parasites are there that affect the brain, thus affecting our decisions directly? Brain tumors are often virus parasites, or in other cases, possibly foreign bacteria, all directly impacting human decisions. Plus, when you study social engineering and psychology, It has been known for centuries that people have a weak spot, that they suspend logic and judgment when someone appeals to their emotions. We are also a product of our environment, directly reflect the information we are fed, sometimes consciously and mostly subconsciously. We absorb information from our parents, who are also a product of their environment, absorb information from schools, media, and society in general. Mental illnesses such as schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, etc., directly affect a person's decisions. These issues raise questions about our free will and how much of it do we really have, if any at all. Christian version of hell is claimed it is a choice every person makes. How can people make such a critical choice if their free will is compromised by forces well outside their own control? Humans have a hard time remembering where they put their car keys. How can such valuable humans be trusted to decide their eternal destiny, especially in the face of an eternal lake of fire? 9/11 in New York reminds us religious fanatics resort to fear by causing terrorism against those who don't believe in their religion. Most would agree today this is a low point in our society. Christian idea of hell is eternal terrorism on those who oppose Christian beliefs. Other hell questions. Is eternal hell a just punishment for actions that were temporary? Even if I go to heaven, what will happen to those I love if they go to hell? Will I know about them burning when I'm in heaven? Will I care? Do I care now? Will I not know about them? How do I know for a fact I will not know about them? Depending which Christian you ask, you will get completely different answers, and the Bible doesn't make it very clear because one set of verses contradict the other. But important to note, if it seems morally wrong that your loved ones will possibly burn in hell forever, doesn't the idea sound completely immoral? And is your God really a loving God for allowing such things? Yes, I'm an unbeliever, secularist, humanist, atheist, or whatever title you want to give me. Even call me religious and it won't bother me. Because the bottom line is, I have no belief in superstitions, no belief in afterlife, gods, spirits, and magic. I'm just human with my share of mistakes and wrongdoings, even deliberate at times. But I'm not constantly going around drunk and murdering people. I have a desire to see myself and people of this world get along, to whatever extent. How do I have good desires without a belief in God? One answer to this: over time, religions collected and repackaged already established universal morals and monopolized on them. These morals give religions credibility, but the fact remains one can retain these morals independent of religion. Millions around the world are proof of this. And the fact remains religion does not increase morals of a person. The most secular countries in the world have the lowest violent crime rates. Scandinavian countries are a good example of this. USA prison inmate demographics show inmates are no less religious than the general population. Yes, I also base knowledge on science, such as biology. Our consciousness, our memories, and personalities are simply information stored and processed between our brain cells. The average person has 100 billion brain cells and over 100 trillion flexible connections between these cells, receiving inputs on the fly from all our senses: touch, smell, vision, hearing, etc., 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for many years. Yes, this much input from our environment mixed with this extraordinary brain computing capacity is capable of creating a sense of what we call consciousness and intelligence. This is far more than any animal's brain. Once all our brain cells die, we cease to exist as a conscious being. Most religious and superstitious people who don't understand how the brain functions believe our consciousness is made up by a soul independent of the physical world and possibly lives after the brain dies. You might ask, what is the purpose of living life then if we just die and then nothing? I say we have been gifted, for lack of a better word, with this amazing brain. No species comes close. The potential alone amazes me and makes me want to live. So take advantage of this brain. Do something with it because you only have one chance. And if that something you do with your brain contributes positively to humanity and other species, you will have pride in it, at least while you're alive. But your positive mark will live on after you die, no matter how small or insignificant you think it is. I agree, even if we fail at it often, we really are here on this earth for each other, even from a biological point of view. Because overall, we have a desire to first keep our species alive and avoid extinction. So why not do that and add a little fun and fantasy to it as long as we're honest about distinguishing fantasy from reality? Human fantasy is a sort of entertainment, no surprise, a multi-billion-dollar industry in various media. The idea of afterlife is just one form of fantasy entertainment. It is certainly more entertaining to fantasize about afterlife than face the reality we cease to exist once our brain cells die. But our favorite children's fairy tale is no more real for being our favorite. And if our non-existence never bothered us before we were born, why should it bother us after we die? Have we been I have been dead for billions of years before I was born, and it has not bothered me. Why should it bother me when I'm dead in the future? Heaven might sound more fun than ceasing to exist. But again, fun doesn't make it more real. Besides, I'd rather not exist at all than spend my eternity in hell, which is the other alternative. But more importantly, why waste this one opportunity of life based on the idea of hell or any afterlife which simply lacks evidence? Hell is an effective psychological tool using fear to get people to conform. Only reason to believe in the Christian God is to avoid hell. And since hell is not real, no reason to believe in any of them. Then there is the lack of scientific evidence of any afterlife, including hell. We probably met people that spend a considerable amount of time in countries we have never been to, but how many do we know that spent months or years in hell and came back to tell us about it with consistent evidence? The problem with afterlife is one has to be permanently dead to verify it. Not very convincing, is it? But if you believe hell is real because the Bible says it's real, you might want to watch my other video titled Bible History. Just click the link in the description under this video to learn this quick history lesson on the Bible and how the Bible was created. Thank you all for watching. Comments welcome. Please subscribe. Thumbs up. I have more videos on the way. Have a good day.